So, James, before we officially get started here, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is Leslie there with you?
She's in the other room, and I have talked to her about your Pokemon.
What'd she say?
She goes, oh, yeah, I gotta find my 3DS, because she hasn't played her 3DS in a while.
Well,
So.
I want it. I want it bad. I want it so bad.
Is that the only one you're missing,
It's
Johnny?
the only one I'm missing, and the only person I know who has it and is Leslie.
Why is it so rare? I mean, that's crazy.
I
Was it a special event?
Yeah,
thing,
it's an event Pokemon. It's an event Pokemon, and I forgot to fucking go to GameStop and get it. And for some reason, nobody wants to trade the motherfucking thing.
Well, of course, it's an event Pokemon.
Well, dude, I have like
gone.
80 event Pokemons of different types. This is the only one I don't have, and I can't get anybody to fucking trade it to me.
John doesn't want to have to go to GameStop to see some more stinky middle schoolers.
Well, it was like literally one weekend out of the year back in like 2012, and she apparently went, and I did not. I had something else I was doing, like, I don't know, dishes or something, and
important shit.
Yeah, so
paying bills.
So I fucking missed out on this one Pokemon. So out of the 719 Pokemon that are released, I have 718.
Want to ring the bell?
I'm taking it back. I'm taking them all back.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
I'm a loner, Daddy. Rebel. I am the walrus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to John Hates Movies, the movie review podcast where my friends prevent me from being incredibly racially insensitive and instead force me to watch movies. This week, we have with us Eric Largent.
Tally ho.
We have Jamie Donaldson.
What's the Nubian?
Perfect.
We have James Barrow.
Mr. Bojangles.
And I am your host, Jonathan Barrow. This week, we watched a very fascinating movie. We decided that it was going to be time that we kind of branched out a little bit, and we decided to watch Dear White People. Give me 1 second here to pull up the description.
Who chose this movie? Was it John?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. I picked it because, first off, the preview that I did see a while ago looked pretty hilarious, and this movie is pretty funny. I also picked it because, we don't, on this podcast, and it has been brought up by our listenership, is that we are a bunch of white guys. So I figured that we were going to go ahead and, maybe get some other movies in here that are basically designed specifically by people of color and tackle people of color issues.
So we couldn't just watch like a Medea movie?
I think
we were looking to expand our consciousness.
Yeah, from what I understand, those movies are pretty bad. So I was kind of hoping that we could watch something a little bit better than that. And Dear White People definitely delivers. It is the synopsis is a racially themed bash thrown by white Ivy League students sparks 4 black classmates to reflect on their identity in this knowing satire. Starring Tyler James Williams, Tessa Thompson, Deanna Paris, and directed by Justin Simeon. So typically the guy who picks it usually goes first, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of get the ball rolling. I may revisit this at the end, but I just kind of want to point out a couple of things. So this movie, first off, I loved it. It was a bit of a slow burn. The pacing on it is not something that I typically find myself enjoying, but this movie had just enough of a fast pace to drive it so that it didn't feel like an incredibly crappy art house film, and actually was entertaining. The dialogue in it was stellar. I was really impressed by the way that the dialogue was written, because it was very natural and very funny in parts. This movie is primarily a comedy, but there are some pretty horrifying elements in it, and there are some parts in it that are somewhat creepy. Like, I was a little bit weirded out by oh god, I can't remember the character's name, but the guy with the huge afro.
Lionel.
Lionel?
Yes.
Yeah, Lionel.
The fact where that girl was like touching his hair.
I know.
That was my education, because I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
White people like to do
that's
that?
a thing. That's a thing.
Okay, I don't think it's a thing for adult white people.
It is.
Okay.
Why? Have you actually seen somebody do that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Especially in Japan.
Well,
Oh.
what? You said
well.
I said adult white
But
people.
I've seen it in America too. It's a thing. It is a thing.
I've seen it, but with Eric, I've only seen
Especially
it.
if you have an afro.
I've seen it with younger people.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen it with adults. I think there's a point in time where you just kind of, hopefully, you know better. But
Believe it or not, it's more adult women asking to touch the hair of other adult women.
see, that I would believe.
Yes.
That I would believe.
Yep. They start with, "Oh, your hair, it's so unique and interesting. Can I touch it?"
You probably get it more with people like suburbanites who like haven't seen a black person till they were 10.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's different.
Or 37. America's so integrated, you know.
Right.
I mean, okay, so James talked about how it happened in Japan. I actually had a weird thing happen to me in China, where the last time I was in China, I had a pretty big beard, and Chinese people, without asking me, would touch my beard, like would just walk up and like touch my beard, and that like adults, and that was interesting.
Adults?
Yes.
Give it some of that beard.
Yeah.
Weird business suited Japanese men coming up. It's like, let me check that out.
Well, it happened on the subway, and it happened multiple times. It was interesting.
Confined quarters, not creepy at all.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, wait until I can't remember.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, so you know what? I guess it must be a thing because other people did it to me. So I guess I just have never seen an adult do that in the United States, but that's probably just my experience.
I mean, that's the thing, is that I've heard of it. I've never actually witnessed it myself, but I have certainly heard of that sort of thing going on and read about it, and it's interesting. But actually seeing it on film, I was incredibly creeped out. I was like,
that was weird.
That just does not look right.
Yeah, because he didn't want her to do it. She was just touching his hair.
I know. So yeah, there are little moments of that are very upsetting. There are elements. Okay, so this entire movie, it has a couple layers of premise going on. One of them is that these are, isolated African American people in an Ivy League school. And what I mean by isolated is that, I think the movie describes them as, a single black voice in a sea of white kind of deal. So it's their experiences. And, each of the central characters have sort of their own plot line going on. And they're very funny. They do a really good job of presenting these horrific things in just enough of a comedic light so that it's tolerable and approachable. But at the same time, when they deal with something really horrific, they also do an amazing job letting you know that it is really horrific.
Like tonally they establish it.
Yeah.
And
so for sure.
One of the things that is driving the behind the scenes here is this Halloween party by one of the white... I hesitate to call it a frat because it's like whatever the Ivy League version of a frat is. But they end up deciding to have this hip hop themed party where people show up in blackface.
Yeah.
And I was...
Yeah, that invite, man. That was the most insane thing ever.
And one of the things, though, is that when that premise was laid down, that was a part of the movie that I had a hard time getting behind, because in my head, what I had said to myself is, no way.
No way people are going to be that stupid.
No way people are going to be that stupid. But then at the end...
see, I've seen that before in real life.
At the end of the movie, they show you those stills of all those other frats that have done that. And in real life. And I was blown the fuck away.
Yeah, like I've been invited to a Kwanzaa party that was equally as offensive, and that I didn't go.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, I couldn't imagine being the kind of person that thinks that something like that is okay. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly try to be racially sensitive, but there's like your average liberal who tries to be inclusive and racially sensitive, and then there's the stuff that just should not be. You know what I mean? Which
things that should not be.
I mean, honestly, all racism should be qualified as the stuff that should not be. We'll just get that out of the way. But there is some stuff that is just so patently offensive. Seeing it,
yeah, like it's to me, it's the difference. There's a difference between making a joke and actually trying to hurt people.
Yes.
And sometimes just making a joke can be bad, but the intent isn't quite as bad as actually trying to hurt people,
right?
Which is what they were doing in this movie.
Yeah. They in this was not the filmmakers, but the actual.
No, they being like some of the clearest cut bad guys I've ever seen. Like their motives might have been worse than the Emperor in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like they had less like the frat boys in this had less redeeming qualities than Emperor Palpatine. To me.
But oddly enough, I found them completely believable and realistic. Like the guy's reasoning, like I've heard people reason like that before.
Yeah, I have too, but that didn't make him the least bit sympathetic.
No.
No, yeah.
No, the bad guys in this were definitely not sympathetic. What was interesting was the quasi-bad guys who were not so much bad guys, like the Dean, Do you mean
the Dean? The Dean or the President?
Well, the President was a bad guy, like capital B bad guy.
I don't think so.
See, I'm different.
I'm kind of with James on that.
Really?
Too.
See, like, I think he just didn't know. I think he was just ignorant.
Yeah, there are plenty of like white liberals out there who act exactly like the Dean, who just think that racism is over. Hey, we got a black president. What the fuck more do you want?
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what they say. Racism is over in America. That was one of his lines in the movie.
Yeah, another one of the lines was that he said is, you're just waiting for somebody to get thrown in chains, so you want the time to come back where people are actually being oppressed, so you can feel like you have something to fight against. Which, he might think that, but that's not.
Yeah,
that's not. That's pretty ignorant.
Yeah,
and
that
guy
ignorant.
just came across as very ignorant.
And I guess maybe that is the difference. Is that I for me that was like, I was like, come on,
Yeah. See, the difference to me was he was just ignorant, where he wasn't necessarily trying to be evil. And I think there are people in this movie that are just trying to be evil.
Like the frat guys are definitely trying to be.
Yeah.
The one character there's you can make the case that this movie does not end well for two characters. One of them is the Dean's son. I can't remember what his name is. Kurt. Only because he kind of gets trapped back in his father's expectations of him.
Yeah.
But Coco.
Yeah.
Who the main character refers to as a nose job. She did not have a pleasant ending. And that was the other thing too, is that it was interesting to see them the filmmakers categorize the different types of approaches that black people have when they're dealing with racism.
Yeah.
And
her three things actually like made complete sense to me when she put them down. I was like, well, 100, that's obviously you're just keeping it 100% real, keeping it 100, and
yep.
You're just yeah. And nose job, that's pretty easy to understand too.
Yep. And then the oofta.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is
dial up or down the blackness as needed.
And that's a term I've never heard before, but it is a real thing. What did she say? It was a term that came from theater and like
he said Bojangles.
Yeah. Like
Bojangle era or something like that.
And so basically it was, basically a term that, like we said, it's a, dialing up whatever people feel is black, or like whatever the media presents to us as black behavior, either dialing it up or dialing it back depending on what sort of situation.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fascinating. Really, this is a very well put together movie. There were some interesting choices. The music, like 90% of it is open source. It works.
Yeah.
It works really well. Because it's...
I have a note about that. What's with all the classical music? Royalty free?
Exactly.
It's royalty free, absolutely.
Works really well.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Because...
there was a practical reason. This was a Kickstarted movie. This is an Indiegogo movie.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, this movie raised all of its funds on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Well, the film quality of it was excellent, and the editing was also absolutely amazing.
The writing, everything.
The writing was just astounding.
And the attention to tone, I thought, was really good as well.
Yeah,
like you said earlier, John, with keeping it light for the funny moments and bringing it really down for the serious like race stuff. So
yeah. So I really enjoyed this movie. I really think it's worth a watch, and I think it's worth giving your attention to. I think if you are going to watch this, don't just put this down in the background. Like, sit down and make the effort to watch it, because you're going to learn stuff and you're going to see stuff. And most importantly, this is the first movie that I've seen post Obama's election that addresses these issues in a time where there are white people out there that think that racism is over, or that we're living in some kind of post-racial America.
Yeah.
Because we have a black president,
then that must mean that it's all over. Then this is the first movie that kind of addresses that, and I thought that was pretty fascinating.
I don't think anybody, at least people, shouldn't be able to claim that they think it's a non-racist America we live in when the person leading in the polls for the next president right now is Donald Trump, or at least for the Republican nomination.
Right, and that's the thing, is that I've heard Republicans use terms like post-racial America before.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, it is insane, considering.
Post-racial America.
Well, that just assumes, it just assumes that, there are no more hateful people born ever again in America. Now, there was another really interesting thing, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, John, that came up in this movie, where our main character, the girl, and I forget her name.
Sam.
Oh, Sam. Yeah, Sam. Sam, where the dean is talking to her sternly, and he says that something that she did was racist. And she says, it's impossible for black people to be racist. Racism, denotes a culture of disadvantage that one, people group is doing to another. Now, I kind of know what I think about that. What do you think about that?
I think she was right. I think if you're a black person or Hispanic or anybody where the system isn't set up to disenfranchise you, then you can be prejudiced. Okay. But you can't be racist.
That's a distinction that's important, because there are people there are people that aren't white that have prejudices against people that aren't the same race as them.
That's right.
But I guess the distinction comes in whether it's racism or not.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing that they brought up, the racism versus prejudice. Because I never really thought it, because I kind of just used them like interchangeably.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's racist.
Yeah.
And it never occurs to me in my head just to say, oh, that's prejudice, not racist.
Right.
See, like this movie, once I was done with it, I couldn't just go, okay, well, here's what I think about this movie. Like this movie I had to chew on for a while. And that was one of the ideas that I had to chew on for a bit. That like, well, I know there are people with prejudices, whether that's racism or not, I don't know.
I think it really depends. Like, I think the way the context that she presented it was probably accurate, but I also think that this is a question that is probably debated still, because just by Google searching racism, it gives us a different definition than what was presented to us in the movie. But I think that there is a word, prejudice, and I think that it's a logical distinction to make that that racism is something systemic, where prejudice is an attitude or a belief system. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But
the way that I've heard it summed is that racism equals prejudice plus power.
Okay.
Oh,
so you really would need to be in a position of power to actually exercise that prejudice.
Oh, okay.
So, like,
that's actually a pretty simple equation that makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing before I pass the reins here, did anybody ever watch the TV show Better Off Ted?
Yeah, a couple times.
I caught a little bit of it, yeah.
I love that show.
It was pretty good.
And one of my favorite actors in that show was Malcolm Barrett. So he played Lem, one of the two scientists, and he was also the reality TV scouter.
Oh yeah,
in this movie,
yeah,
and
at the very beginning, at the very end.
My little thing here is that I'm just very glad that he's still working because he was really funny in Better Off Ted. Okay, so who wants to take the reins?
All right, so being my first podcast, I wanted to bring my A game, so I actually watched this movie twice.
Wow.
I watched the movie right away once it got okayed last week that I was going to be on. Mm-hmm. And then I watched it again today because I remembered probably only about half of it.
Well, that explains why you were the one that remembers everybody's name.
I know, yeah.
Because I took extensive notes, like I said. The intro got me really psyched up because it looked like it was going to be a Wes Anderson movie.
See, I wanted to bring that up, Jamie.
The beginning just seemed kind of overt, like just kind of stealing from him almost, but like. The rest of it, obviously, tonally, it wasn't anything like Wes Anderson. You kind of got all away from it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the establishing shots, the intro title cards, where you introduce every house and everything, that was very Wes Anderson to me.
Yeah, and he kept that going later, throughout with epilogue and the different chapters of the movie. Yeah. Yep. Title cards. Yeah.
Most people, from everybody I've talked to, hates Wes Anderson. You either love him or you hate him. I'm one of those lovers, but not everybody. I don't know how John or James feels about him. The reason I like Wes is just the pageantry of his movies. But anyway, the next thing I have is Kevin Smith type monologues.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They're very informed, well thought out, and just kind of overly wordy to an extent sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like that argument that Sam was having with their boyfriend.
Yep, where they're talking about Kanye West lyrics like immediately, and they're like they just have them that they can quote
but with 90% less dicks.
Right. They busted out the thesaurus for those particular monologues. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I have a note here about the TP tube smoking weed. Does that work?
I mean,
what is that?
I mean, it was like a impromptu, or it was like a little homemade air filter that he made.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Is that common knowledge?
Yeah, it's common knowledge. You never lived in a dorm, right, Jamie?
I did not. I lived at home, went to community college, drove in every day.
I don't think any of us have had the college experience.
Not really.
Well, I lived in a dorm my first year of college, and those were pretty much standard. Basically, it's it's like a Febreze sheet or what were they back in the day? Dryer sheet, taped to like with rubber band on the end. The intent, apparently, and I guess it does kind of work, is that if you're smoking weed in your room, you exhale through that tube, and that will clean some of the smoke air as well as like the weed smell. But realistically, I don't think that they work all that well.
I can't imagine it would.
No, because like it's not like when you're burning something that all the smoke is the smoke that you inhale. Like there's excess weed smoke just coming off of the joint.
Yeah.
Right.
But
it's weed smoke everywhere. You're never hiding weed smoke. I don't think.
No.
Ever.
It's got such a unique aroma that it's pretty hard to mask.
But they are standard for pretty much anybody who lives in a dorm room. So those are definitely a thing. Whether or not they work, no idea.
I was surprised that there was a separate black student union, but then I guess that kind of fits into the whole, lone black community in the midst of an entire white community.
Right.
So they have a specific black student union. It's like, that seems kind of weird.
No, they have that at MSU as well, actually. I know that one for sure.
Again, haven't been on the university type, living conditions, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then that they were pro-segregation in terms of, like, they didn't want to divide up the house or have random housing assignments, which I thought was interesting.
That makes sense to me though, because like people will always want to be around people like-minded
people.
Yeah,
right.
Either it's just I think that's human nature that you're just going to want to be around like-minded people.
There's things that they can talk about with each other that they necessarily couldn't talk about and understand, get that instant understanding.
Right.
Okay. Like they couldn't sit next down to either of you guys before the podcast and go, don't you hate it when people come up to you and ask to touch your hair?
Yeah. Right.
Or like they can just
or they can just sit in their common area and not have people come up and grab their hair. that must be good, I'm sure.
Well, and I think also, too, part of it was the fact that by them being in that house and that house being primarily black residents, as well as a couple of Asians and a few Latinos, they're able to set the rules and the agenda for the house based on the culture of the house. Where if they're spread out all throughout, then it's going to be the white people in charge. And it's going to be white people, the white people rules for the house. So certain sort of things. I'd want to know that the people who were in charge were representing me, not
I guess just looking at it on the surface, I just thought it was kind of odd that the black student community, who was very much about, being against racism, where it was just like, but we want to live in our own house. Right. And I just thought that was kind of weird. But then it's like, obviously it makes more sense. You have like-minded people in the same house. So,
yep.
What else do I have? I have the lunch at Arm Parker, the first lunch with Kurt, praising old white power tropes, like affirmative action.
Oh, yeah.
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 That's crazy.
Like the white power guys, man, that's their go-to. It's like the less qualified black guy always gets the spot over a more qualified white guy.
I hate that argument.
You hear that kind of stuff all the time, and that's just like always what they go to. And it's like, well, then his part was written perfectly because that's exactly who he's representing.
Oh, I hear that shit all the time.
Yeah.
I hear that shit all the time, like unsolicited from fucking white people.
Oh yeah.
I talk about things that like certain people can say around certain people. Yeah, there's just way too many racist white people that just assume you're racist because you're white.
Or that you feel that way because you're white.
Yeah.
Any way to kind of get yourself, the white person, like being the downtrodden for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's where racism comes from, pretty much, is this idea that people who are beneath you are getting more than they deserve.
Right.
But yeah, like working at, I was working at this place, and it wasn't really my coworkers weren't known for being forward-thinking people. Is that sort of place?
Was it a large chain store in Michigan?
No, it was a factory.
Oh, okay.
But I'm working with this guy, and he's talking with like another white guy, and they're just sort of, bullshitting about politics like idiots. And then like they get done talking, and one of them comes up to me and goes, "Yeah, man, can you believe it? I mean, they went from like those people being slaves to one being the president." And I go, "Yeah, it's called progress."
Yeah, that is one thing that always kind of surprised me is that, and it reminds me of that SNL sketch where Eddie Murphy goes undercover as a white guy. And like, they give him all the free
classic.
Yeah,
I love whenever there's when there's nobody else around, they give each other free shit.
The black guy just left. Get out the champagne.
Yeah,
crackers and oysters.
No, go on, take it. Go on, it's okay.
When white people are alone, they give each other things.
Yeah, but the thing that there is a part of that is a little bit true. When it comes to that whole thing, like where somebody...
That champagne thing is 100% accurate.
That is true. We are all drinking champagne.
Right.
No, but what the fact is that if there is a racist person and everyone around them is white, of course, the old joke is that they do the look over the shoulder thing, but they feel perfectly comfortable being racist at you.
Yeah.
And assuming that you're on board.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's the thing that just like blows my mind is that, that they feel completely fine just doing that.
Now, I belong to a certain secret society. I don't believe that
name any names, but
say the name. But these people over here broke up a sanctified meeting.
Oh, yes.
Oh, brother, where are you?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
I thought that was Django Unchained. There's a similar scene in Django Unchained.
I thought it was Colonel Sanders.
Oh, those commercials. Yeah. Okay.
I'm the real Colonel Sanders. You can tell by the fact that I'm so racist.
Allegedly.
Anyway.
Allegedly. Okay.
We might need that KFC money in the future.
Yeah, I know. I love
That's
KFC.
True.
I ate it for lunch yesterday.
I haven't had KFC in forever. Anyway.
What else do I have? Oh, then that goes to like Sam's student film, the first one, which was the Rebirth of a Nation. The parody of Birth of a Nation. And wow, was that one loaded.
Yeah.
That was fucking hilarious.
I think we all know what she was thinking when she made that. Whiteface.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then she got appropriately spoken to about it, and the film teacher was like, you were complaining about Gremlins, saying how Gremlins was racist, and I thought the Gremlins argument was fantastic.
That was hilarious.
I wanted to read that paper. Oh, God, it was so brilliant. 15 pages of how Gremlin is about white people's fear of black people.
Black people invading a neighborhood.
Yep.
Full of white people.
They're rude, they're drunk, they're noisy, they love fried chicken, and they can't. They flip out when you get their hair wet.
Genius.
There are some great lines in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What else we got? Oh, then we have the fulcrum. What I feel is the fulcrum of the whole movie was the tip test.
Yeah.
Whereas if you hadn't seen the movie, basically the tip test explains if, as a black person, you're sitting in a restaurant, you receive really, really shitty service. They take forever. They bring you your meal like 40 minutes later, whatever. And
it looks like they're doing it because you're black.
Right, and it looks like they're doing it because you're black. And then the question is, how do you tip? A, no tip because they were a shitty waitress. B, 15% because it's the standard. And C, over tip to spell any black stereotypes. Mm-hmm. And the ABC, of course, is attributed to the A is the 100, as in 100%. B is the UFTA, or the dial up or down the blackness. And then the C is the over tip with the nose job. So smoothing out your black edges to blend in more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought that kind of the whole movie kind of pivoted on this, where like specifically most of the black people in the movie were all one of these kind of somewhere in their varying degrees, where you kind of had to try and figure out like where they would end up being, or that's not what I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say?
It's like
no, I mean that's actually pretty accurate. You know, they set these characters up, and the question is, do they grow at all?
Yeah.
And what happens when they do? And honestly, I think the only one that does is Coco, and she doesn't.
As the nose job.
Yeah. And she doesn't get the happy ending.
No, I think Lionel
grows.
I don't know if he grows much, but he also he seemed like he didn't really need to grow that much. Like he was pretty normal.
He was the 100%.
He was just like, and he had a different thing that he was dealing with that alienates him from other black people even.
Right. Yeah.
And, I think his growth was just, I guess, realizing that, I don't know, realizing acceptance maybe from some people.
That he can be himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of him and Lionel and the Dean's son kind of had the same arc, except Lionel stayed out.
Yeah.
And the Dean's son just went right back in.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I loved the
Star Trek conversation.
I love that too, but the tip scene because it illustrates so well. Not only like how it illustrates not just how racism perpetuates stereotypes, because if that stereotype did not exist, he wouldn't have received that shit to begin with, so he wouldn't have been stuck with that moral quandary at the end of it. So it perfectly illustrates how that happens, and it also perfectly illustrates how when you're stuck in that sort of system, you can't win. There's no right answer for that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought the tip scene, like James, I thought the tip scene was kind of like the fulcrum in which the whole movie kind of pivoted.
Yeah.
The really funny line about most people are here to see Fang 9, 2 Chainz is in it. I like that
bit. That was funny.
That was hilarious.
Because before that, they were ragging on Medea or Tyler Perry. So,
yep.
But on the flip side, South Park always has that thing where Tolkien can't not watch a Tyler Perry movie, which I think is hilarious. He's like so upset with himself because he's so into it.
Oh Lord!
I thought that the comment about writing an invite to the party was legendary. I thought that was kind of goofy on the part of Kurt. President Fletcher, he said that racism is over in America, and then he said that comment to Sam about he longs for days when blacks swing from trees, when blacks had no rights, and so they had something to push against.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, as we discussed before, I think that's born out of ignorance.
Yeah.
He doesn't really know what's going on out there. And then he also said that little PS thing. I don't know if anybody caught it, but he said something about, racism was over. And then he said, well, except for Mexicans, maybe.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So it's like, so that's the next one to worry about, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, we got a black president, so black's not an issue. So now we just got to get the Mexicans on our side.
And
something.
And Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. Then comes the most racist invite ever.
Yeah.
Which was like unbelievably epic.
Okay, so I have
in its awfulness.
Yeah, so I have a question. So who actually? There's a little bit of a mystery as to who actually wrote and sent that.
I don't know.
I think it was her.
That was the twist. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Sam.
See, I don't think it was.
So?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it is because they make a point of establishing that she's hopeless without technology.
And I know exactly who I think it is. It was Sam's kind of boyfriend who was egging her on to be, more of an activist. I think he did it because he was the
Reggie.
Yes.
He's the one who fixed the election for her.
And he knows what she uses as her password, so he was able to set her password. Like he had all of the ability and the motive. I think it was him.
I think you're probably
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed it was Sam because the way that when she was talking to the president or the dean? I think it was the dean at that point. Mm-hmm. When she was talking to the dean, she was kind of giving him like this knowing smile and everything. It's like, yeah, I know what went on, but then she went into the explanation. It's like, what should have happened was outrage, but what instead happened is all your students rallied together and threw the most racist party ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I think that should tell you where the state of your school is. It's like, oh yeah, damn. Yeah, and I haven't heard some notes about Coco, where it's just like she's such an interesting character.
Yeah,
one of the ones that really stands out because she's like from the beginning you can kind of determine it's like, oh well, she's kind of self-hating. She's like she grew up middle class, and then she's around lots of black people that she doesn't really identify with because she wants to get the straight A's and everything and be go to what do they call it? Well, whatever the rich white house was, like Bechet or something like that.
Right.
So that's what she aspired to be. And then, kind of in the middle of the movie, she kind of did a flip and decided to do something to counteract the Dear White People.
Yeah, but she only did that when she saw that Dear White People was more popular than what she was doing.
Right.
So really, her real motivation was just getting more popular.
More self-serving, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's mainly all I got. Oh, the last thing I didn't know exactly what George's motivation was. George was the editor of the Bugle, who kind of, I guess, had a thing for Lionel, but maybe not really. I don't really know.
Yeah, yeah.
His character wasn't really, I think, all that well thought out for. I think it was probably a foil for Lionel because you can't have a gay person and not try and address where them being gay is central to their character and not try and address that specific issue. I don't think it was necessary to do that, though, quite honestly. I mean, Lionel could have just been Lionel without that little mini romance there in the end, because they had already established the conflict that his identity causes.
Yeah.
It, causes himself.
It almost kind of seemed like a throwaway, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of
did. In terms of like just like a trope or a plot point or something, because I guess they kind of made the movie out to be about, like, Lionel, I guess, was kind of the main character, like he's on the cover of the movie. But obviously it's more a movie about Sam. But
yeah.
I think they kind of threw that in there, and I guess kind of toward the very end, George said something like, I could eat you like Hershey's or something like that, where it was like, I think,
yeah.
Which I think...
You said a couple things that were like, come on, dude.
Yeah. There were a couple of and that's the thing. I think George was just kind of a foil. I think he was like extra racism, when it was really not super necessary. It was like the fact that he was trying to make out with him at that party and not really realizing.
Yeah, he wasn't reacting to how ridiculous the party was. He just
yeah, that's true. He wasn't. I guess it just.
There was something else too, like about right when he walked into the office the second time, when Lionel was not Lionel, but the other guy was on the phone with the advisor from. There was like something sinister going on there, like, oh, we're just gonna use Lionel's stuff and throw him away.
Well, yeah, like
we're just using him for access.
Yeah, yep. He's just our access into this issue currently, and once that's done, then we don't really need him anymore.
Yeah, and the whole thing, like, I'm a good writer, right? And he's like, you'll get better.
Yeah, I think if this movie if the rest of this movie hadn't been so tight, George wouldn't have stood out as quite a loose, dangling plot thread as he did, because he was kind of unnecessary. I agree with you there. I think he was kind of like a leftover bit, maybe from an earlier draft that came along for the ride.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the last note I had. That's really all I pulled from it. But I pulled a lot. And like I said, it was a thick movie. There were times when I laughed and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to. It was kind of kept me on edge, and it's just kind of a good movie. It makes you think. It makes you think in those terms, and keeps you on your toes.
So I don't have a ton to say about the movie. When I watch this movie, this is not the kind of movie that I would just sit down and watch on my own for any reason other than just doing this podcast. Like this isn't a movie I would seek out.
It's kind of heavy.
Yeah, and it is kind of heavy. And while I was watching it, I didn't enjoy it. Like, I didn't enjoy, like, this isn't a movie that I enjoyed watching. I didn't like it. This movie wasn't for me. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. There are things that were executed well, especially since, and I'm looking up the thing right now. He ended up raising $40,000 to make the movie. Like, that's how much this movie cost.
Only
$40,000,
and it looked
wow.
Right. So, like, the achievement of making this movie was extremely well done. Like, we've talked about how he used license-free music, and he needed to, but doing it over and over again, it kind of, like, when you do it a few times, makes it fit into the theme, and after a while, it's just part of what the movie's doing, and it's not, like, sticking out like a sore thumb. So the filmmaker's name was Justin Simeon, and this was his first movie that he made. And you can tell that there are a few different instances where he's borrowing things from other directors. And the two that stood out the most to me, we talked about the one at the very beginning and with the title cards. He was definitely borrowing from Wes Anderson. And then I think we've talked about the the tip scene, and I think that scene actually reminded me an awful lot of Quentin Tarantino. In high school, I went to a pretty small high school, and the people that ran it were a middle-aged hippie couple, and they had a bunch of adopted kids, and all the adopted kids were from somewhere that wasn't America. Like, there was a Portuguese kid, there were a bunch of Haitian kids, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And one of the oldest kids was actually a part-time teacher at the school, and she was I think she was some kind of like social science teacher for me. And February rolled around, and she wanted us to all do presentations for Black History Month. And there was one kid in the class who was black, and the other like 10 or 12 of us, I went to a very small high school. The other 10 or 12 of us were all white kids, and she wanted P.S. the guy picked to do a presentation on for Black History Month was obviously Muhammad Ali, because I like sports and he's an important person.
I've heard he's the greatest.
He is the greatest. Yep. Yeah, it gave me an excuse to just run around the gyms shouting, "I'm the greatest! I'm the greatest!" So that was wonderful. But she wanted all of the white kids that were doing presentations for Black History Month, and I'm not joking. She wanted us to all put on blackface to do our presentations.
Whoa!
Yeah, and so we were all kind of sitting there like horrified, and I was probably 15 or 16 at the time, and I was like, even then I knew that was not okay. so a group of us kids like all kind of got together and like walked up to the principal's office and was like, this is what your daughter wants us to do, and we don't think it's okay, so what do you think? And we didn't have to do it. So that was good. I say that I have never worn blackface, so hooray for me. No.
Yes, hooray.
Yeah. Man, you dodged that bullet.
No. But it's just insane to see at the end of the movie where they showed all those pictures of kids having blackface parties, and I've even heard of it, where white people will throw black people themed parties and they're not nice about it. It's not like a celebration of culture. If we wanted to there could be a nice way to have a celebration of somebody's culture without making it patronizing. We can do that.
Yeah.
Long story short, this movie brought up a lot of stuff that, I just don't think about, and this movie will absolutely make you think. Now, whether it's necessarily for you or something you will enjoy, that's something that will depend on the individual. But this is a good movie, and it's probably worth a watch. I just didn't enjoy it.
All right, so James.
All right, so I found this movie really confusing. There was a bunch of black people in it, and nobody died, and nobody stole anything, and they didn't act like it was all one big monolith. And they all had individual, unique characters, and I was just like, what?
What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm talking about Hollywood.
Okay.
That was a joke about Hollywood. Yeah. So, this movie, it is probably one of the only movies I've seen that actually has black characters that are actually characters, and are unique and have full backstories and multifaceted type of deals going on.
I agree with you there. And the tropes that they set themselves up, the categories that they set themselves up in the movie are not categories that you usually see in film.
Yeah, and they're also they're not usually in film, and they weren't all encompassing.
No, and they're independent for the movie's mythology rather than
I have to admit, when this movie was chosen, I really put off watching it, and I kind of watched it the latest I possibly could, which was a mistake. And honestly, I really like this movie, but the reason it took me so long and I was hesitant to get into this movie is because they make fun of Medea and all that stuff in this movie. Well, Tyler Perry comes from kind kind of not necessarily like a tradition, but like there is people out there, like small black studios that make small black movies for a black audience with black people in them, and just like a lot of small studios, well, most of their movies completely suck. And I was thinking,
are you talking about Soul Plane?
Soul Plane, kind of one. There's.
Are you talking about Undercover Brother?
Not
like
so much. No.
Now, Undercover Brother was an SNL. That was a Lorne Michael joint. That wasn't.
What, Undercover Brother was?
Oh wait, no, I was thinking.
Yeah, Ladies Man. No, Undercover Brothers, where Martin Lawrence has a watch that shoots hot sauce.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like
no, it's Eddie Griffin. It's Eddie Griffin.
I don't think
it's Eddie Griffin.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's Eddie Griffin.
Jeez, what a racist!
Oh my gosh, I know. I just outed myself as an asshole.
This movie will bring up all of the times you were accidentally racist as a white person.
Oh, yeah.
And yes. A lot of
glad I got mine out of the way.
Oh yeah, but it didn't make the cut.
Oh, I've got
yeah.
Oh man, no. But honestly, that does remind me. Shortly after watching, no, it was before Clerks 2. I was at a late night poker game, and Eric, I think you were there, and there's just like a couple of friends, friends of friends I didn't know. And there was a black guy there, and we were just sort of shooting the shit about all sorts of things, playing a poker. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man, that's so funny. And he was just sitting out there like some sort of porch monkey. And he was like, dude, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? And he was like, dude, that's such a racist term. And I'm like, really? I just thought it meant you hang out on the porch.
Yeah.
And nobody knew you were bringing it back.
Oh.
Yeah, there is no bringing it back.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
no,
yeah,
there's
just
no bringing
like,
it back.
It is ridiculous that white people in white culture, you can live your whole life with your friends saying incredibly racist shit, and you would not know it's racist until you completely say it in front of a black person and they correct you.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous.
Or a white person who's just not prepared to hear it.
Or a white person who actually is kind of educated in the matters. Which happens.
Right.
It can happen. Needless to say, I have been educated a lot since then. But no, these the movies and houses that I'm talking about, if I'd have to look it up, but they're so obscure and so small that you wouldn't even recognize the name if I said it. I was at a situation where somebody rented one of these things, and it was just incredibly boring. She wanted to watch it, and I was like, okay, well, you want to watch this? And I had a bad run of choosing movies for a while there, so deferred to her. But anyway, this is boring.
You made her watch Plan 9 from Outer Space, so like you had to watch a little.
Yeah, like something like that. Like, yeah, probably one of the worst times was when I was on a date with somebody, and I was like, hey, maybe we should rent the Messenger. It's about Joan of Arc. This would probably be sweet.
Uh-huh.
About a month ago, I brought Tusk over to my friends to watch. I'm not allowed to pick movies.
Yeah.
Jamie. Me and James went and saw Tusk together
in the theaters.
You saw it in the theater?
Yes, we did.
Wow.
Yeah. That's an interesting movie.
It seemed like an interesting concept, but yeah. All right, mini review of Tusk.
Yep,
Kevin Smith was just too in love with his own voice.
Yep.
And he needed somebody to check him and be like, all right, dude, I know you love to talk, but this shit needs to be cut down. Because, it was just way too much Kevin Smith in that movie, and he just needed to be checked.
And that was a great point, saying that he loves to hear himself talk, because at the end of the movie, while they're rolling credits, he undercuts his entire film by playing the podcast episode where he comes up with the idea for the movie, and you realize how fucking ridiculous that this is. Like, you're like, oh, this was just a stupid idea that he got and said one day, and now we are seeing a movie that's based on that. Okay, well that's great. Like he cut his own legs out during the credits of this movie. Like it was crazy.
That was stupid.
Yeah.
And he could have honestly, there's a decent movie there. Not great, but like there's a decent grindhouse flick there, but he definitely needed another hand in the studio to say, "Yeah, I know you love to watch Johnny Depp act, but you gotta cut him.
You gotta cut it." Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So
that would have been a really good, concise short film.
Yep.
I would say.
Yep. And there were plenty of points where he could have added attention and stuff. Anyway,
mini review Tusk.
Yep, mini review Tusk.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. The other funny part that I cracked up at was mulatto. So somebody fucking say mulatto. Say mulatto.
Yeah, that was good.
There was once I got done with this movie, it was great. Like it wasn't made by one of those tiny little art house things, and it was done by a guy who knew how to make a movie.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to play Final Fantasy III while I watched it, and I couldn't. It completely sucked all my attention away. Kept me engaged the entire time. I will say it was, it was thematically dubious at best, but that's a line from the movie. So, callback joke. No, it stayed very well on point. However,
Jamie got it. He just watched the movie today.
Oh, right.
However, it was a little dense. There was a lot of things introduced, and honestly, when you get into the political social shit, when it comes to like race interplay and power dynamics in America, there's a lot of shit there. Mm-hmm. And this movie, even though it was incredibly dense and touched on a lot of shit, really was just a primer.
Yeah.
And I feel like if anybody is not really informed in this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of points that you can just sort of start and grab onto, but I feel like a lot of it will just end up flying right past people because it's just so much going on with this movie. Mm-hmm. However, like I said, the tipping thing was fantastic. The other thing I think that they did great was that, if you talk about I'll touch on something to lead into this. I honestly don't think any of the bad guys in this movie were intentionally bad.
Just ignorant?
Privileged. Like, privileged in, not necessarily the Tumblr sense of the word, but, in the, old-timey definition of that word, meaning you have had a good life and you are blind to the problems of other people.
Like evil through complete and utter selfishness.
Yeah.
Like blinders.
Complete blinders. Like, they have never had a bad life.
Social sociopath.
Yeah.
Ism.
Yeah, like they have never lived a bad life, so they find it impossible to believe that a person who
that's
is
racist,
who is in a similar position as them could have had a bad life. So I honestly believe that when he talks about affirmative action and how good black people have it, he honestly believes that. Because there are people out there who honestly believe that black people have it better than white people in America.
That's insane.
Stupid people.
That's insane.
It is insane.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of people that believe that women have it a lot better than men, too.
It's insane, but they're out there and they are completely genuine in their belief.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you can't. I don't know. How seriously do you take insane people, though? We just people are going to say dumb stuff. We just can't take it seriously.
Yeah,
right.
without getting too far into it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
Without getting too much into it, I think it's just when you reach a certain age, certain people cannot handle the idea that they might be wrong about anything.
Yeah.
And there's just other people who they have their mind set and they are ignorant to certain things and they cannot, because they can't believe that they can be wrong, they will never learn. They're not open to learning.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily intentional evil. It's just ignorance and privilege.
Yeah.
And
the movie really does a good job shining a light on that.
Yeah.
And honestly,
in the president's a perfect example of that. I think
I've heard people, people I know, and people in the Republican Party, and the people who who throne these parties, and people who defend these people who throw these parties. They say. They say pretty much, well, what's wrong with trying to have a hip-hop party? We were just trying to have a hip-hop party, and we like hip-hop, and why is that wrong? And this movie cut through the bullshit and it did it on an emotional level, which is fantastic, because you really can't go logic, like be all heady and stuff like this. You can, but it's a dry argument. And honestly, you need to understand, like, they needed to show these people in that party, and honestly, not in blackface, just like dancing to the music like an idiot and trying to emulate, maybe in their minds they were emulating what the fuck they saw on MTV and shit. And when you see it in this movie, you understand there is no line, there is no ambiguity there. It is mockery. Straight up. Mm-hmm. There's no other way you can view that. And that's fantastic because it does cut through the bullshit.
Yep, and you can see how it affects people on an emotional level.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they do a really good job of making you feel it, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and feeling that righteous awesomeness when Lionel just busts the shit up and throws the speakers on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was fucking great. I know one thing about jazz. When your solo's up, you better blow.
I want to say I've heard that somewhere.
I don't know, but it's fucking great. And the fucking Star Trek thing was fucking great too.
Oh, the Star Trek line was my favorite.
It's like
where Lionel.
Don't worry, I'm not going to tell about what I saw you doing the other night. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg, Michael Dorn. Some would say it's a pretty black show. Yeah, how'd that work out for you in high school?
Yeah, I love it. And I think the line is actually, well, you think a show that contains Whoopi Goldberg, Michael Dorn, and Kunta Kinte himself.
Yeah. That's fucking great, though.
Yep.
But yeah, just that whole thing. I'm really into this stuff, and I've been listening to this podcast called This Week in Blackness for like ages. I started listening to it because it was hilarious. I kept listening to it because it was informative as all fuck, and I still listen to it because they're right as all shit. Like, they're just right. They're so fucking right. And yeah, my consciousness has been raised around these issues a lot. And like I said, this movie did a good job of addressing a lot of issues, but it really is just a primer. And probably one of the only bad things I can say about it is that it might be a little too dense and a little too dry for some people.
Well, a shout out to our fellow podcasters at This Week in Blackness. I've listened to one or two things, and James is right. They are funny and very informative. James, are you pretty much wrapped up?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
All right. So, folks, you know what time it is. We're going to step away from the microphones, try and, lighten up a little bit because we've been dealing with some very heavy subject matter.
Really?
Good stuff. Yeah. But I can't stress it enough. Every once in a while, we need to do an episode like this because while we do like to bring you the funny, we also, when we find a movie that we really think is worth watching, we want to bring it to your attention. And while, not all of us may agree as to how good of a movie this is, or I'm sorry, how entertaining of a movie this is to us as individuals, we can all pretty much agree that this is a movie at least worth watching.
Yes, absolutely.
So with that being said, we are going to take a short break, and after that, we will be back with the game. Hi, this is John from John Hates Movies. Usually, this is where you'd hear one of our commercials. We originally set aside this time to make room for eventual advertising space. And we've decided that it's time to open that advertisement space up. So for a limited time, we're going to open this advertisement space up to you, the listener. How much is it, do you ask? Well, it's absolutely free. That's right, for the cost of $0, you can have hundreds of John Hates Movies listeners listen to your message. How do you participate? All you have to do is either send us a script at our Facebook page, or you can record your own audio and send us a Dropbox link. We'll review all selections, and the ones that we like the most will show up in this spot on John Hates Movies. Submit your advertisements today. And we're back. That's right, folks. It is time for the game. Does anybody else feel like we just had a very special episode of John Hates Movies?
This is the one where Carlton gets shot.
Yeah.
I'm down. I want French Prince. French Prince.
I know. We know you want
French
Prince.
James watches French Press.
Yep. So it is now time for the game, but a couple of quick announcement before we actually start with the game. Next week is going to be the beginning of John Hates Movies annual Spooktober.
My very favorite thing that John Hates Movies does. I absolutely love it. I can't get enough of these fucking scary movies.
Eric, it's Fingertober.
I know.
Watching.
I know. I'm seriously gonna spend like 10 hours in October just watching the palms of my hands. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna love it.
Yep. So, yes, we are going to be picking out scary movies. Maybe scary, funny movies. Maybe scary movies. Certainly not Addams Family. Not this year. But with that being said, we do have a very special listener suggestion list going on the Facebook page for Spooktober movies for those of us who may not have one readily at hand. Please give us more suggestions. What we have on there is great. There's a couple that aren't on Netflix, so obviously that's a bit of a problem.
Here's an important announcement for people. If you're listening and you like us, you like the show, and you know what we're about, pick something off of Netflix. Like, that's a good place to start because that's what the show is.
We are bound by Netflix.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. we would love to watch Candyman. Unfortunately, not on Netflix.
We appreciate your we appreciate you playing along at home, but if you're going to, stick to the format. Pull something off of Netflix, please.
So with that being said, let's move on to the game. This week's game, it was very difficult for me to pick one that we, basically didn't just invalidate the lessons that we learned from the from watching this movie.
Here's a good game idea, John. You say a racial slur and we guess who it's racist against.
Yeah, let's not play that. Instead,
Guatemalans.
I don't think you can say that.
Instead, what we're going to do this time around is we are going to play Determine the Plot. I am going to give you guys titles for relatively, not super famous, but relatively well-known blaxploitation films. And you guys are going to provide me with the plot of these blaxploitation films. It doesn't have to be super lengthy. You can give me just a couple. And for those of you, you will win a point if you are close to the original plot. And of course, you can always score a point by being completely and utterly ridiculous and really funny. I think there's,
which will probably be close to the
point. So we are gonna do probably maybe 2 rounds of this and see where we end up on the scoreboard. And the winner of this will be choosing our first Spooktober movie.
All right. So I hope I win so I can pick something that's not scary.
No, you gotta pick.
No, I don't want to.
Ernest scared stupid.
Not much on the horror movies, Eric? Or?
Not a fan. No.
Not a fan?
All right. So, Eric, do you want to go first?
Sure.
All right.
I'll get out the big lead here. Here we go.
Okay. Your title is Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song.
Okay. So Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song is basically like Shaft, but it's exactly like Shaft, except the main character is a woman singer who sings a song really well, and it like cleans up the neighborhood. but it's like basically exactly like Shaft.
Well, not exactly.
What?
First off, it's not a woman.
Oh,
it's Melvin Van Peebles. He's a sex worker.
Whoa.
Who works as part of a sex show. And apparently the police need a patsy for a murder in the black community. So Sweetback's employer gives him up to 2 white cops, who Sweetback accidentally ends up killing and then goes on a big escape to Mexico.
So basically exactly like Shaft.
Yeah.
From what I know of Shaft.
Which is next to nothing. So Eric, I do like the idea of you of a song cleaning up a neighborhood, though. So I'm going to give you a point for that.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie.
Yay!
You ready?
All right, give it to me.
The Human Tornado.
Ooh, okay. This is definitely a kung fu movie. Everybody does kung fu. Main character, the main character's kid, his girlfriend, his mistress. Everybody does kung fu.
The credenza mistress.
The credenza does kung fu.
Is that the plot? Because you're actually kind of right.
What?
The synopsis of this one is a fat rhymer, I'm assuming that means hip-hop artist, flees to California where he helps a madam and her female fighters battle a local gangster using kung fu.
What?
Yep. So Jamie gets a point.
Wow.
That's what I said.
Kung fu.
Hold on, no, Jamie should get 2 points for being like dead on or like pretty damn close. He should get more points than I did.
All right, we'll give Jamie 2 points
All
just
right.
because
I can't argue with that.
All right,
Because
James.
it was both funny and correct.
James, you ready?
Yes.
Truck Turner. And keep in mind, you can score a bonus point here by naming the actor.
All right, naming that. Forget that. I'm not going to fucking name an actor. All right, so this movie is about a drug runner named Truck. No, a drug runner named Turner and Eric's dad.
Yeah. Oh.
And Turner's wanted by the cops, hides on Eric's dad's truck, and then they witness a murder and they got to bring down the mob, and so it's Truck and Turner vigilantes, and that's why it's called Truck Turner.
Can I guess the actor?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the actor is Fred Williamson.
No.
I mean, that's who we have to guess for all these, right?
The actor is Isaac Hayes.
Oh shit!
Oh man,
that's what I was gonna say. Just as stupid.
James, you know what? I'm gonna give you a point because I like the whole Eric's dad thing.
That's right.
Actually,
so that's how you get a point.
It's actually a bounty hunter who kills a pimp, and the pimp's girl, Dorinda, vows to avenge the pimp's death, and she basically turns out all of her successful call girls into assassins, and they all go after Truck.
That
Truck
sounds
Turner.
awesome, actually.
We gotta see this movie.
Yeah, it's 7 out of 10 by IMDb and a 75% Rotten Tomatoes movie. So
I mean, that doesn't sound bad.
no, yeah. All right, so James.
So Isaac Hayes takes a bunch of like hookers and turns them into assassins.
No, Isaac Hayes kills a pimp, and that pimp's main girl turns a bunch of hookers into assassins who all go after Isaac Hayes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
all right.
he has to fight them all.
Okay, that's still cool, I guess.
All right,
He turns
so
them with his
round one is over, and Jamie is obviously in the lead here. So let's go back to Eric. Eric.
Yes.
Disco Godfather.
All right, so the actor in Disco Godfather is that one dude from Shaft. And it's basically, Disco Godfather is exactly like Shaft, except except
I sense the theme.
So it's exactly like Shaft, except for it's kind of also a little bit like The Godfather, and it's instead of Sonny Corleone, it's this white dude that likes the Bee Gees is running shit in the neighborhood, and our Shaft stand-in cleans up the disco punks from the neighborhood with good soul music. And it's basically exactly like Shaft.
So disco is the enemy?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, no, you still get a point, but no, because the hero, who is played by Rudy Ray Moore, is actually a disco nightclub owner who declares war on drug dealers after his nephew has a bad trip on angel dust.
Oh, see, mine was like the opposite.
Yes, exactly. Yours was the opposite of what the movie was, so therefore it was wrong. But you still get a point because, once again, music cleans up the neighborhood, and it's exactly like Shaft. So I'm pretty down with that. Okay, so Jamie.
All right, hit me.
Foxy Brown.
Ooh, Foxy Brown's actress is Pam Grier.
You nailed it in one.
Haven't seen it, though. But if I had to guess, Foxy Brown is a cop who is taking down drug dealers left and right. And I can't remember. I think she hides a gun in her afro. I think that's this one. I'm pretty sure she's a cop that takes down drug dealers.
Does she have a catchphrase?
You've been brown.
How about Miss Foxy if you're nasty?
Oh.
I like that. Unfortunately, we'll give you a point for getting the actress.
Yeah.
And you were very close, but not on point like you were with the tornado. So we'll just have you score a point there.
What is it about?
It is you were very close, though. I got to say that.
I thought that Foxy also warranted a point.
not
How about
enough.
1.5?
No,
okay. 1.5.
Just 1 point.
Yeah,
okay, 1 point's
One
fine.
point. See, the thing is it's Foxy is the sister to an undercover cop who is killed by gangsters, and then she goes on a vengeance tear.
Ooh.
Oh.
So I can't give it to you, Jamie. I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine. But well, I got Pam Grier anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You're still in the lead because you got Pam Grier.
Right on.
Yep.
Right on.
I wish I had Pam Grier.
Well, who doesn't?
Right on.
Okay.
I totally did that on purpose.
James,
Mm-hmm.
you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Your movie is Shaft in Africa.
Okay, this movie's just like Shaft.
Shut up!
But he's in Africa. My guess is okay. So it's Shaft, and he instead of being against drug traffickers and guerrillas, or not, being the cop that is against drug traffickers, he is in Africa against guerrilla fighters and drug traffickers and human traffickers who are also guerrilla fighters.
And the wait,
does he fight actual gorillas?
That would be racist.
Gorillas with a U, I think.
No.
All right,
The hazard
James.
Yeah.
No silverbacks.
This is going to be. Man, you are really close, but I didn't give really close to Jamie either, so I don't think you get a point for that. Can you name the actor?
Does he know the actor? Yeah.
I don't know who played Shaft.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep that one in my pocket in case we need to do a round 3 with another Shaft movie, because there were 3 of them. James, you were really close. But first off, Shaft is not a cop. He's a private investigator.
Oh, yeah. Who's a private eye? God damn it.
Secondly, he is not beating up drug traffickers or guerrillas. You were right. He's beating up slavers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep. Human traffickers. Yep. But it was close, but no cigar. So right now, as it stands, we are at Eric with 2, Jamie with 3, and James with 2. I think we can do a lightning round. We're moving through this pretty quick.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. So, Eric.
Yes.
Your movie is Blackenstein.
Okay. That's easy. Blackenstein is no, it's not. It's not basically exactly like Shaft. No. Well, so first off, the actor in Blackenstein is none other than the Godfather of Soul, James Brown. Yeah. And it's basically a documentary about James Brown and his it's like a behind the scenes of what it takes for James Brown to get up and do a show. And so it's like you wake up with James Brown in the morning, and they have to strap the jumper cables onto the diodes on his neck and shock him to life. And then like he kind of goes through where like people feed him souls and it, you know, it kind of like reanimates him a little bit. And then, you know, he goes out and he does his show, and like, you know, he's giving it all to the crowd. He's the hardest working man in show business. People don't know about him is that he's not the hardest working man. He's the hardest working undead man in show business. And, and so like when the guy is always coming out and trying to put his robe around James Brown, really that was like a little parlor trick that they did. Like, so James Brown is like flagging and he's like getting down towards the end of the show, and he's like running out of energy, and he doesn't have any like souls or electricity left inside of his body. So like the guy comes out and he puts the robe around him, but really that robe shocks him back to life. It's like got jumper cables attached to it. And then James Brown like, runs back out and is, ow! It's a man's world. And then they put him back in the coffin, and he falls asleep, and then they like drive him to the next town, and they do another show, and that's Blackenstein.
You
Wow.
get a point.
At least.
Yeah. Who's the actor, Eric?
James Brown!
Oh, that's right.
Pseudo Duck.
Oh, buddy. Well, you didn't get the actor right, but you definitely get a point for that.
Okay.
Nothing to do with what it actually was, of course. Although the synopsis itself is a little strangely misleading, because this is obviously Black Frankenstein, but the synopsis is a war veteran whose limbs...
Wait, what?
Yeah. The synopsis is a war veteran whose limbs were medically restored becomes a killer when his physician's aide switches his medication.
Whoa. That's weird.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Medication.
It's one hell of a direction to go with that.
Yeah, they took a decent story and kind of made it dumb.
This is a man's world.
Yeah,
I like Eric's movie better.
Yeah, I do too.
Say it loud.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy. Okay.
What? That's
Jamie,
what I'm supposed to say.
This one, no, that's fine. Jamie, this one might be a little hard for you. You ready?
Okay.
Petey Wheatstraw.
Petey Wheatstraw.
Yeah.
Who would the actor be? I have no clue.
All right.
How about Mario Van Peebles again? Why not?
No.
Throw that out there. I think it's a period piece, kind of like Django Unchained, where he's like working on a plantation, but he breaks out and exacts his revenge on the plantation owners and kicks a lot of ass and working his way to freedom. That's my educated guess.
Yep, completely wrong, sir. I'm not kidding you with this, okay? So just bear with me, all right? Now, the actor in this is Rudy Ray Moore, another famous blaxploitation actor.
Yeah, I don't know that guy.
Yep. Hoping for a grandchild, the devil sends his minions to find the man who promised to marry his ugly daughter.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you.
And this was called what again?
Petey Wheatstraw.
That sounds hilarious. What the hell?
Yeah, actually, it kind of does. Terrible ratings, but still.
If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, never make a pretty woman your wife.
Yeah, man,
right.
that
I'm the devil's daughter to marry you.
No, that's okay.
That was rough.
James.
Yes.
You ready?
Oh, yeah.
The movie is Let's Do It Again.
Let's do it again?
Yep.
Okay.
Not gonna get this actor.
Nah.
But there's two male leads to this, so I'll give you a point for either one.
Okay.
2 points for both.
So, it's Sidney Poitier on like a down street. They caught him on the way down. And
have you seen this before?
No.
Because you just scored yourself a point.
Holy
Sidney Poitier is one of the two leads.
What? No way!
Yep.
Oh my god.
James, do you want to take a guess at the other one?
No.
Oh.
All right. So okay. So this one is actually the trick of this is that it's actually Blackula Part 4, but they knew that they couldn't sell you it as Blackula Part 4, so they just called it Let's Do It Again, because they've done it 3 times already. And this one, Sidney Poitier has an apple stand, and while he's a man in the stand one day, he gets ambushed by a Dracula and gets bitten and becomes a Dracula.
Wouldn't that be a Blackula?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking Sidney Poitier.
Yeah, what the hell?
All right, James. I'll tell you what. I'm looking into this now, but I will give you another point if Blackula had actually 3 movies prior to this.
Oh, shit.
And unfortunately,
They only had 2.
they only had 2.
Oh.
So
no.
Man.
Oh boy. Well, you got a point. You got a point for Sidney Poitier.
Unbelievably.
I know, unbelievably.
And I don't get a point for Dracula?
Normally I would give you that Dracula
For
point
a
because you know how much I love that. You know how much I love when people call it a Dracula. No, but yeah. So okay, so here's the plot of this one. Very good. The second actor.
Who's the other actor?
Bill Cosby.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Yep. So Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby are members of a fraternal lodge called the Brothers and Sisters of Shaka that needs money for the retirement home that they sponsor. So Sidney Poitier apparently has a gift for hypnotism, so they hypnotize Jimmy Walker.
Wow.
Yeah. Into becoming a boxer and being really good at it. And they collect Jimmy Walker's winnings. And that is apparently the whole premise until the mafia keys into what they're doing and tries to track the 2 guys down.
Yeah, I kind of want to see this one too.
Yeah. So, for those of you listening at home and have been tallying the scores, it is all tied across the board. Everybody has 3, which means we need a tiebreaker.
So does that mean tiebreaker where all 3 of us guess about the same movie?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I got to aim for the stands on this one.
Yep.
I'm not winning with trying to actually determine what it is.
All right. You guys ready?
Yes.
The last movie in question. Chef's Big Score.
Oh no.
Oh man.
All right, so I've got it.
Okay.
All right, so it's so first off, the actor that did Shaft is Morgan Freeman. And Shaft's Big Score is a sports movie where Shaft is a basketball player, and he's undercover at a basketball game, or he's like infiltrating this underground basketball ring who's been distributing drugs through basketballs that they throw out into the stands at the basketball games. So like it's like these basketball games are all just like a show, and like Shaft is like keyed in on it, and he's like, oh, at these basketball games, like you can see the basketball players throwing these balls full of drugs to the guys in the stands, and those guys end up going and like selling drugs. So Shaft gets himself on a team. Well, like first off, he starts a team of his own dudes, and like it's and like he starts a team of his own dudes, and like he's Richard Roundtree and
wait, what
Isaac
did you just say?
Richard Roundtree.
Is one of the dudes?
Yeah, but is he really Shaft? So he's.
I don't know if I can give that to you.
So he's. Well, I just took it off the board for everybody else. So suck on that. And so it's like his crew is like Isaac Hayes, Richard Roundtree, Acula, James Brown, and James Earl Jones, and basically they go through the ranks of all the basketball teams. Like they get into a tournament. And when they see a different player throw a basketball into the stands, they just shoot him on the site. Like, bang, he's dead. And like the game's over, and nobody tells the next team that they play about it until they're on the court with them, and then they throw a basketball into the stands, and then they all shoot him, and that's Shaft's big score.
Fantastic, Eric. You get a point. So, Jamie, I'm guessing that you actually knew who played Shaft. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did.
So Eric stole it.
I can't believe he got that on a fluke.
He stole it from you like one of Shaft's b-balls. So, Jamie, why don't you tell me what Shaft's big score is about?
Shaft's big score, he's out in Europe, out in France. And, wait, could I ask if Shaft in Africa, was that before or after this movie?
Shaft in Africa was after.
Was after, okay. So Shaft's big score, Shaft is living it up in Europe, out in France, and a big jewel heist goes down. So now Shaft has to get together a whole team of like bad kung fu kicking mofos to come and help him out. And he's using all his private investigation skills, and he's looking at the clues, following the trail, and he finds out that the big jewel thief is none other than, how about Danny Glover? Danny Glover and his sidekick, a young Lawrence Fishburne.
That's back when they called him Larry Fishburne.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Larry. Yeah. Probably 16 at the time. Uh-huh. And Bill Cosby has a cameo. He is the security guard for the museum where the jewels are being kept. And Shaft punches him in his face. And it all culminates when it's a big boat fight. Or not fight, boat race. A boat race where they're, going down rivers and tributaries and chasing each other and shooting guns and kung fu fighting across the bow and stuff.
The Seine River. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yep. And then Larry Fishburne eats it. He takes one in the gut, and Danny Glover swears revenge and has Shaft on the rope. And just before he can say goodbye and put one in between his eyes, Bill Cosby jumps out of the water and grabs him by the leg and pulls him under.
All this is happening during Armistice.
Yeah, this is on the boat during the boat fight race.
All happens during Armistice Day.
Yeah.
Jamie, you get a point.
All right.
James.
All right. Eric's wrong. This isn't a basketball movie. However, it does have a cameo by the Harlem Globetrotters and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, okay.
He's in this movie too.
Nice.
You gotta look for him, but he's in there. And he's a tall one.
Okay, yeah, okay. Gotcha.
See, this is in New York City. And it's not about a jewel heist, but Shaft finds out about a pimp who got a large cocaine shipment and is trying to move it to get like over $1 million. And Shaft gets together a team of badass individuals so that not only can they, he gets the cops and the pimp to play against each other, kind of, get a little cat and mouse between them going, and then he sneaks in there like a badass, and the guy gets caught, and Shaft and the guys walk away with $2 million and all the honeys, and that's how it ends.
Oh man, I want my like team of like tough guys to be called badass individuals.
No, your team of guys is called a what was it? A group of dudes?
Yes, a group of dudes. Yes,
a group of dudes versus the intimidating individual.
Well, James, I think that was also worth the point, which doesn't really resolve our tiebreaker. So I'm just going to pick a winner, and I'm going to say, you know what? Let's let Jamie choose as our special guest.
That's affirmative action.
Let's let him go.
I was an equally qualified candidate. You give it to that guy.
Well, that is
so
not
James
accurate in the least. If anybody is interested in what Shaft's Big Score was actually about, look it up, because the description doesn't really give you much to go on. Private Detective John Shaft runs afoul of feuding mobsters as he searches for the truth behind a friend's death. Actually, what probably would have scored you double points on that, Eric, is if you said it was exactly like Shaft.
Well, you know what, John? I have the Wikipedia plot, and it's pretty ridiculous. While New York is never at a loss for criminal activity, things take a turn for the worst when the corrupt co-owner of a funeral parlor and insurance agency kills his partner, a personal friend of Shaft.
A funeral home and an insurance agency. Now, why didn't I think of that? So
right.
The basketball team is much more obvious.
All right, so Jamie, let us know, what are we watching next week for Spooktober?
Yeah, so the movie I would like to choose would be one that I've been looking at for a while. I've heard so many good things about it, but I've never actually sat down to watch it. So I want to know what you guys think of The Reanimator.
All right, so Reanimator, based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft, this can't-be send-up follows an egotistical medical student who develops a serum that miraculously revives the dead. This is widely regarded as a horror classic, so for those of you at home, you're going to have a lot of fun, and we're probably going to have a lot of fun with this one as well.
What year was it from?
Like 73?
God, it's like 1978.
Okay.
No,
85.
Wow. Okay, nope, 85. Way off.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
1985.
Some of the effects just look 1970.
Yeah. And it's got 70s dialogue. And 70s pacing.
Uh-oh.
And a lot of other 70s-like things. So, yes. So, we will, next week, you heard it here first, we are going to be watching for our first Spooktober movie, The Reanimator.
All right.
My first win!
Yay! Good night, everybody! A great big thank you to our staff graphic artist, Tabby Walters, the Weekly Cast, and our listeners. You can listen to our podcast on iTunes, the Stitcher app, through YouTube, or directly on our website. Feel free to send us a movie review suggestion. Every third episode is Listener Appreciation, where we choose from your suggestions. You can reach us through social media, either by liking our Facebook page, John Hates Movies YouTube channel, or following our Twitter at John Hates Movies. Our music was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can find this track and many more on his website, incompetech.com. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week to hear someone say,
okay, so, John hates movies. Like, other people hate other things. Like, I hate Doctor Who. Like, they're this isn't appropriate.